So the Mavericks have been on my mind recently, and yes, it is due in part because of the recent struggles they've been having back-to-back losses against the Charlotte Hornets, who are in the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes, is just not good, especially for a team that is hoping to come out of the West. But I'm not even concerned about, and I also forgot the Mavericks won last night, but I'm not even concerned about this season because I've seen a lot of, this is DEFCON 1, oh, this is extremely bad for the Mavs, and it is in the short term, but I was never really high on the Mavericks' playoff hopes anyway after the Kyrie trade because the Mavericks were bad defensively, were a bad defensive rebounding team, a bad rebounding team, and it all just got exacerbated when Kyrie Irving was traded to the Mavericks, and the Mavericks sent away their best defenders. So I don't know what people thought was going to happen if you were an optimist of the Kyrie trade. I was kind of lukewarm on it. Honestly, I wouldn't have done the trade. I think I said that in my trade reaction because I'm just not in the business of Kyrie Irving. But the trade happened, and where it can reach DEFCON 1, however, is later this summer. And that's how I kind of looked at the trade, but the problem is Kyrie Irving is an unrestricted free agent this summer, and if the Mavericks aren't able to resign Kyrie Irving, that is when things get really into DEFCON 1, because you lose not only the second co-star to Luka Doncic, but you lose all the assets, and then you have, what's your plan B? What's Mark Cuban's plan B? I mean, Mavericks fans, I don't have to tell Mavericks fans that whenever there's been a plan of we're going to use cap space, it never really worked out. The Mavericks have been trying to find a second star next to Luka, and if this doesn't work out, and this is where kind of the short-term stuff maybe can bleed into the long-term effects this could have, because if the Mavericks flame out soon, if they even make the postseason, if they even make the play-in, they're only a half game out currently of the 10th seed for the last play-in spot. But for a team that's supposed to have Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic, it is just a disgrace that this team is the 11th seed right now. And if they miss the playoffs altogether, that could have potential huge ripples, especially if Kyrie just looks at the situation and is like, you know what? I had a cool few months in Dallas. It's time to go elsewhere. Now, I know the Lakers, it was recently reported that they were not interested in pursuing Kyrie Irving this summer. The Athletic reported that, I believe, about a week and a half ago or a week ago. But it's not like Kyrie Irving won't have a short list of suitors. I mean, the talent is apparent. That's why the Mavericks made the trade, despite all the off-court stuff that Kyrie has had. And look, the Mavericks struggles. They're worse defensively. Well, their defensive rating did jump up a little bit because, again, they played the Hornets back-to-back times even though they lost, and they played the Indiana Pacers without Tyrese Halliburton. But before this weekend, the Mavericks were 25th in defense, allowing 119.3 points per 100 possessions per cleaning the glass. Now they're 21st. They were dead last in rebounding before the Kyrie trade, and they improved a little bit. They're 29th in defensive rebounding, but their total number is actually worse than when they were last, averaging 38.3 rebounds per game since the Kyrie trade. The Blazers have taken the last spot because now it's clear that they are in the we're going to shut Dame down and shut a lot of our key players down mode. So while the Mavericks, their total number is worse, they did move up in the rankings, I guess. But either way, this team, they just don't have it, man. I know Luka and Kyrie, they can just generate offense, and the lineups with Kyrie and Luka on the court is obviously blistering offensively, but they are a tiny team. They got even tinier after trading away Dorian Finney-Smith and Spencer Dinwiddie. Christian Wood, who is an unrestricted free agent this summer, just doesn't seem to be gaining the trust of Jason Kidd. It seems to come and go, and he doesn't trust him on the defensive end. The Mavericks are just smaller. I guess the good news is Jaden Hardy is getting minutes because I like that dude going back to Summer League. So I'm glad he's getting some minutes and actually playing really well. Josh Green, he took a leap this year, but there just really isn't a lot of optimism this season for the Mavericks and their outcome, especially because Jason Kidd, he has reverted back to the very reasons why I did not like the hire before last season. And then Jason Kidd, of course, exceeded expectations. The defense way outperformed expectations last year. They were a top 7 defense, and all year they've just been bad. Weird rotation choices. Jason Kidd has just not been good this year. Certainly not as good as last year. But this summer is going to be interesting because I've looked at this trade as, okay, if I made this trade and I am building the team out for the future, I got to make sure I got to re-sign Kyrie Irving, and then I can fill out the rest of the roster with the necessary fitting pieces, because I did not think when this trade happened, obviously at the trade deadline, I did not think this was going to be the year the Mavs made a deep playoff run. I just had no faith in the defense, the rebounding, and, the fact that the Mavericks, while they could theoretically keep up with a team like the Kings or somebody like that in a playoff series because they can go on these crazy scoring binges and the offense is just always going to be so good with Luka and Kyrie sharing the court, one of the two always on the court at all times, I just did not think they had the makings of a deep playoff run. Just not enough size. There's too many good coaches out west, and some of the teams that are in that play-in from the 6th through 12th seed range, a lot of those teams, they've had their top players out, and those guys are coming back. And I tell you, man, that Western Conference playoff bracket is going to be a bloodbath now that teams are starting to get fully healthy, and I just don't see it shaking out for the Mavs that way. And to me, this was a trade for, okay, we got the second star in the building. If we can just get him to re-sign with us, then we can focus about filling out the rest of the roster with the proper role players, get more size, get more rebounding, etc., etc. But if the Mavs don't even make the playoffs, what do they even do this summer? Especially in the event if Kyrie Irving looks around and is like, you know what? I just don't want to stay in Dallas long term. I don't know, but I guess we'll find out in the next few weeks.